Good morning, this is your Stat Sensei, Mr. Spensei, and this is a warm-up on one sample proportions, and this is coming from the note spiral, and we're going to do scenario 3, how do I reach these kids? So a 2019 Common Sense Media report stated that 46% of teenagers in the US felt that television was the most appropriate place for advertising. Well, that's to me sounds like that's a claim. And it's obviously a percent. Because it's a percent, I know this is a proportion. So P equals 46% or 46 divided by 100 um, for advertising to the 13 to 17 age demographic. So this is who we're advertising to. Post COVID, Madison Avenue advertisers believe that this percentage may be lower. A recent survey of 1,023. All right, so this sounds like this is our sample size. So we have a sample size of 1,023 uh, selected teenagers from the 42 million across the U.S. There's our population size, 42 million. And I should have highlighted that they said it was randomly selected. So we have a random sample. That's good. That'll be one of our conditions. Found that 173 felt that the television advertisement was the most appropriate. So, all right, out of the 1,023, 173, so our X is 173, thought it was most appropriate. So, our hypothesis test, conduct a test at the 1% level. So, alpha equals 0.01 to determine whether the percentage of teenagers who find television advertisement is effective is less. So we now know that our HA is going to be a less than 46%. Now, I will say in this video that we are not going to do the conditions. We're going to do those in the notes in class. So, so we already said this was a hypothesis test. This is our formula. Our sample proportion, that's our p hat minus our population proportion. Please remember when you're running a hypothesis test, we always have to work with p. So for p is always for the test. P hat will be for the confidence interval. All right. So most of our information was given to us. That we know our X is 173. We know our sample size is 1,023. And they gave us this percentage was 46%, which is 0.46. Don't forget, that's 46 divided by 100. What they didn't give us was P hat. Please don't forget P hat equals X over N, which is just the 173 divided by the 1023 as we have written right here. We already said that we're going to do a one proportion Z test. So there we go with that. All right. When we go to draw this, we always have to keep in mind that we're going to be centered if we're working with a hypothesis test. If we're working with a hypothesis test, we're going to be centered on P. So we're going to be centered on that 46%. So our drawing needs to be centered on 46%, which it is. And when we went 173 divided by 1023, we got a P hat of 1691. So we're centered here. And we set up here that this is a less than. These two things have to correspond. That less than and that less than have to correspond. When we plug in, it's just simply pretty simple when we go p hat 0.1691 minus our p of 0.46. And then we also have, don't forget, when we're running a test, these have to be the population proportion. All right, our null hypothesis. Where our null hypothesis is the original claim. The original claim is 46%. It's always equal, so it equals 0.46. Or if you preferred, you could have said HO, and you could have said P equals 46% if you prefer. And the alternative, you could have said either one of these are perfectly correct in my mind. P is less than 46%. Okay, just be consistent. Either go decimals or go percents with it. All right, our parameter. What were we what are we concerned about? Well, we're concerned about the percentage of the population of teenagers who thinks television advertisement is the best. Um, so we'll need to define our parameter here in a moment, but let's go ahead and run our test because we're going to define the parameter in our notes. All right. So stat test. Let me redo that. Stat, arrow over to test, drop down to one proportion z test, number 5, and we have our population proportion of 46, or 46 divided by 100. All right. Our x value is 173, n is 1023, and for our our alternative, we said that we needed a less than. Please note this less than here is consistent here, and it's consistent with the word less than up there. So that's where we get the less than symbol. And we calculate, and we ended up getting a p-value, well, first off, a z-score of negative 18.6 and a p-value of 0. So our probability is 0. All right. With that small of a p-value, we're going to reject the null for sure. Okay. All right. So that was the hypothesis test. Now switching over to the confidence interval. All right. With the confidence interval, we're not going to center our drawing on the population proportion anymore. We're going to center it on our p hat. So it says create a 97% confidence interval for the proportion of teenagers across the U.S. That find television the most effective medium. All right. So once again, we're going to hold off on doing the parameter and the conditions. We're going to do that in our notes. So right here, we're just going to quickly run the test. So our formula, very simply, p hat plus or minus z star p hat, etc. The only thing you need to make note of is, once again, when we're running a confidence interval, it's p hat for confidence intervals. P hat for confidence intervals, P for hypothesis test. This was an information we already got from above. The only thing we added was the 97% that came there. We said that we needed to be centered on our P hat, so we're centered on 0.169, and we have a P hat, and we wanted this area right here to be 0.97 or 97%. So at this point, we have all of our information to plug into the formula. I see, oh, I got p hat, I have n, but what I don't have is z star. So I need to calculate z star. The way to calculate z star is second vars, inverse norm, parenthesis, 1 minus 0.97, close parenthesis, divide by 2. Mean is 0, standard deviation of 1, because it's a z-score. All z-scores are 0 and 1. We want left. And we end up getting 2.1700. And we want to make that positive. And so that's what we have here. 1 minus the 0.97. And this is 2.1700. And we just plugged in our information from above. There's our 1691. That's our p hat. This is also a p hat, and there's our n, our sample size. All right, let's go ahead and run this test. So stat test, we have to drop all the way down to letter A, one proportion z interval. There's our x of 173, our n of 2023, and we need to change that confidence level to a 0.97. And we get 1436 to 19454, and the name of the test is a one proportion z interval. All right, this concludes our warm-up. I sure hope that helps. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.